One more thing.
One more thing. One more thing.
Hello and welcome to a very special episode of One More Thing, where I am joined by Phizix, who's literally just dropped another massive body of work, a really conceptual body of work, the Winter Songbook. We're going to find out all about that and plenty more. But first, how are you doing, George?
I'm good, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Feeling quite privileged to have a little peek into this studio of yours, man.
Yeah. Not many people get to see behind the curtain.
Yeah, no, cool. We'll find out about that because I think that plays a whole role within everything that people are hearing. And it's just been like winding back a tiny bit. It's been a really prolific year. We've had a good year. It's been a good year for Phizix fans in general, really. The output has been more than it has been in years. So.
Yeah, I sort of owed it to people, really, because I had a few quiet years. Do you know what I mean? I'm sort of, when you've been away for 2 or 3 years, I sort of feel like you're playing catch up a little bit. So it's just like, right, let me make sure, I'm putting out a decent fucking flow of music. I intend to carry on doing that. I know, like, there's always life shit gets in the way, and it has done in the past. And I've sort of said to myself in the last year, like, right, I mean, lockdown mainly, sort of, just remember what you do. Do you know what I mean? Like, all this other shit, all right, it might be important, but the most important thing is you make fucking music. That's what you do. Do you know what I mean? And nothing else should be getting in the way of that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. But something I've always taken from any interview that we've done, any conversation that we've had, is that you also won't put stuff out unless you're really, really happy with it and it's
unless it's right
out in the world.
Yeah,
as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Don't put shit out for the sake of putting it out. Do you know what I mean? But I know I can put out. I know, like, when I'm on it, I can be prolific. Do you know what I mean? I can make a lot of music, and when I hit a sort of like a state of flow, I can make a tune a day. Do you know what I mean?
Oh.
So it's like, if you make a tune a day, like you can make fucking 4 good ones in a month. Do you know what I mean? And it's also sort of going to yourself like, right, you might make some shit, but that's all right because everyone makes shit. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it's like a tap. If you run a tap, you don't drink the first water that comes out the tap. Do you know what I mean? You run the tap for a bit and then you'll drink the water later. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes some shit will come out first, and you've got to get through that shit before you get to the decent stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. That's a brilliant analogy. It's all part of the creative process. Yeah, you have got to get that out of your system, whatever it is, until you hit the good stuff, isn't it?
That's it, man. That's it. And it's sometimes it just doesn't come, and you just got to accept that. Do you know what I mean? I don't know, find something else to do in that time. But yeah.
What do you do in that time? Are you one of those type of people who will then work on noises and find other studio jobs to do, or will you close the door in the studio and go, right, I'm not in the right headspace for this, and go and do other life stuff? Like
a bit of everything, really. I have learned to. I used to be one of them people who just try and force it, and I've learned as I've got older, you need some time away from the whole thing altogether. Do you know what I mean? You still need a fucking life.
Yeah.
Made a lot of sacrifices for music in my life, and sometimes they weren't necessarily the right thing to do. If I hadn't made those sacrifices, I might have been happier and therefore made better music. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I'll have days where I'll just work on sounds, because I think it's important to do that anyway. Because then when you come to make music, it means it'll flow better then. Yeah. So I might spend fucking half a day just working on one break, and then I'll stick it in a folder, and I might do that for a few days until I'm inspired again. But I'm also lucky that I work with other artists as well. So I'm working with these lads called Cooper T at the moment.
Oh, right. Go on. They're awesome. They wear balaclavas, don't they?
Yeah. So I'm producing all that, and they're fucking wicked. And it's completely different to anything else that I do. You know what I mean? And then also working with Salo, me and Chimpo have been working with Salo on her soul stuff. Because a lot of people just know her as, doing the drum and bass, and she's going to blow people's minds when they hear her actual songs. She's fucking unbelievable.
Brilliant. So, yeah, she really is. And Eva B as well. I think you've got
I've been working with Eva as well. Yeah, because Eva's closely, like, he was sort of part of Cooper T as well. Cooper T was sort of Eva's idea. So,
right.
Yeah, working with the three of them. And so that allows me to sort of, to not get lost in drum and bass at times. Do you know what I mean? And I always find that the stuff that you do outside of drum and bass, it can feed back into it. Do you know what I mean? The stuff you learn about yourself on other projects that you don't think you're going to learn. Like, I worked with Paul Heaton a couple of years back. Paul Heaton, who was in the Beautiful South, and he just come out.
Right, okay. I knew I recognized the name. I was trying to think then.
was fucking mint, wicked experience. And I'm
Wow.
going into it thinking, oh, I'm going to learn loads about songwriting and I'm going to learn loads about this. I actually learned more about myself. Do you know what I mean? I learned that I procrastinate too much. I learned that I fucking, you know, I could probably work faster. I could probably be more direct with the way I work. You know, like things like that, where you like the stuff that you thought you'd learn
Yeah.
isn't necessarily the thing that you thought you'd learn, and then you find out something completely different about yourself, and you're like, all right, shit, maybe that's the thing.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So
So was that producing like an album for him or anything
yeah,
like
it
that?
was.
Because I mean, he's like an industry long old timer, like so. There's
Yeah, he's a
probably
fucking legend, man. It was
yeah.
yeah, it was an album called Manchester Calling. Went to #1.
Wow,
Yeah, it
wow,
was fucking mint. Man. It
amazing.
was a really good experience. But yeah, working with Paul and Jackie, who was in the Beautiful South as well, in their band, and a guy called John Williams. He was like he was the main producer on the project, and I was sort of brought in for doing sort of. I mainly did drums, to be honest with him, and then I produced 2 of the tunes off it as well, 3 of the tunes off it as well. So
Brilliant.
yeah,
But
it was
yeah,
good.
that all feeds into your inspirations then really, doesn't it? And
Yeah,
everything that makes you you, and then you can plow that into
into
well,
something
you know,
else.
the dub physics stuff. And we spoke recently when we announced the Winter Songbook, and you said you'd not been this inspired in years, possibly ever. I might be
Yeah,
overthinking that.
yeah, no, it's right. So I think I had a golden period in about 2010, 2011.
Mm.
Speak to Ash skeptical about this all the time. They were just the best years, man. Like fucking me and Ash were swapping tunes back and forward, making loads of music, and everything in Manchester was just popping off. So Skittles had done his album, Del DRS had done his first album, Strats had done pre-season training, Hit and Run the Night was popping off, Chimpo and Fox had the Eyes, you know Jimmy Myrna, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I do. Yeah,
Jimmy was living here. He was sort of doing all our press and PR and stuff, and it was just a fucking really vibrant time. And obviously, music was just fucking top then, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like the 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 rise of dubstep and how that affected other music around it was just really good for bass music in general. And it was
yeah.
just a wicked time, man. So yeah, that was like a golden period. And again, I was making a tune a day, and I've been trying to get back to that for years. And it's only really in the last year that I'm like, right, I can do that again now. Do you know what I mean? I don't know
Wow.
why. It's just fucking. It's just that it's just the way shit happens in it. I guess having a settled studio like back then. It was sort of a couple of years after I'd built a studio in my old house in the garage. Me and my dad built it, and
Go on.
yeah, that was a lot of tunes got made in that room. So Marker and all, and Marker Never Been Creator, all those things got made in that room. Dell's album got made in that room. Skittles' album got made in that room. And now Chunky lives there, and he's just made his album in that room, which is coming
Oh,
out. On it.
brilliant.
First release is tomorrow, actually. So, and that's
Wow.
fucking amazing. That album,
Go
really.
on. So a part of you is kind of in that with having built that room with your dad.
Yeah. And it was nice because when Chunks took over the gaff when I moved out, it was like, well, the studio's going to stay in the family now. Do you know what I mean? So it's mint, and he's fucking like, what he's
Yeah.
done in there is absolutely unbelievable. So I
Go
can't wait.
on. That's brilliant. I mean, if he moved things around too much, though, would that be awkward if you went around there and you'd seen he'd smashed down a wall or something like that
No,
and
because it's
put
got to be
something?
his space. I mean, he couldn't
What have you
anyway
done
because
with my room?
it's so small you couldn't fucking do anything with it anyway. But it's his space now. Do you know what I mean? It's not the space I had. He's
Yeah.
made it his own space. It's different, but it's got to be right for Chunks on it. Do you know what I mean? And he's made it his
Yeah.
own
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
He's wicked. So
Totally, man. Well, I've got questions about the studio that you're sitting in now, but first I want to talk about the season because I think like you're quite influenced by the seasons, and right now this kind of like autumny, wintry kind of time, the end of the year is a
yeah,
fruitful time for you anyway, inspiration wise. Like regardless of
yeah,
where else you're at creatively, this is a good time of year for writing tunes for you. I think, isn't it?
yeah, 100%. Because I think I guess probably in the past it was just the times when I'd be indoors. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And everyone's indoors, your phone's not ringing because everyone's just like, fuck it, I can't, it goes dark at fucking 1:30 or something, doesn't
Oh,
it?
yeah.
Yeah, fuck it, I'm staying in the house, and that's so I think it was just more I'd get more tunes done there, but then I don't know, like I think back to certain tunes that I made in the time of year I made them, and like if you've made a good tune, you're going to be inspired by the idea of that time, and I think that just has a bit of a snowball effect. So I think that's probably what it was. Like some of these tunes have knocked around for a few years, and I was like, I knew I had to do something with them. Like I was thinking maybe an album, or I'm not really sure. And then I just sort of listened to them one day, and it's like they're all quite wintry. And so I was like, fuck it, I'll do like a winter thing. I actually wanted to call it the winter tape, but there's a Children of Zeus thing called the winter tape, isn't there? And I haven't seen them. And I saw Connie the other day, and I said, I've just put this thing out called the Winter Songbook, and I called it I wanted to call it the winter tape. And he was like, you should have just called it. And I was like, I'm not going to do it without speaking to him. Do you know what I mean? So it ended up being the Winter Songbook was just a placeholder, really. And it just ended up fucking sticking. But yeah, I was like, right, I'll put it out at the end of the year. And then when I actually sat down, started talking to John, my distributor, about it, I was like, fucking November isn't winter.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Winter starts like now, basically.
That's what I mean. It's at least December, isn't it? And I was like, and by the time you get to the other side of Christmas, no one wants to fucking hear about winter. People are just waiting for spring then, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? So I was like, I'm gonna have to put it all out in December. And yeah, I don't know whether, I guess it's the way music's put out nowadays, is that people put things out week by week, don't they? And then, or month by month. Do you know what I mean? It's that waterfall strategy thing. It's like it's just a way people release music, and I sort of did it like that. And I'm looking at it now and just going, should I have just put the whole thing out at once? Do you know what I mean?
It's such a tricky one, and I think we're going to get to the real kind of one of the most exciting and inspiring parts of this project is the way that you've gone about it and how that's kind of revolutionized how you approach tunes and the arrangements and everything like that. But there is this kind of feeling of getting lost. Like, I know so many people in the industry who have ear fatigue, and when they get an album, I still get really excited by an album or any big project like this, like a body of work. But I know so many people who don't. They're like, oh my God, 10 tracks to go through. And there is this kind of just short attention spans, too much stuff out there for us to choose from. And a worry of something that you spent hours, days, weeks crafting is going to get lost in the mix. And I mean, that's the psychology behind why we're releasing big things in small dosage, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but then it's like, if I'm releasing this thing to go like this is supposed to be a long form thing to try and stop that, then putting fucking 15-second clips of it on Instagram isn't really you know what I mean? It's it's going against what I'm supposed to be fucking doing. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I mean, I'll wait till tomorrow. I'm time recording. It's coming out at 12 o'clock tonight. So from then, everyone can listen to it as a whole, and then we'll see. Like, then I'm excited for everybody to hear it as one full body of work. Do you know what I mean? Because really, all right, they're individual tunes. I know people like that feedback of people saying this is my favorite or that's my favorite. Really, it's just supposed to be 8 tunes at once. It's supposed to be a thing that you're supposed to listen to all at once. Do you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's not an album, though, is it?
It's not no, because it's 8 tunes. You can't call 8 tunes a fucking album. Do you know what I mean? Didn't Gucci Mane just put out an album that's 80 tracks?
I didn't know that, but no, it doesn't surprise me. 80 tracks.
Yeah. But it's got to be 12, hasn't it? 10 or 12. Do you know what I mean?
I think so.
8's not an album. 8's a long EP. I
don't
think
you're like an old school prog rock band in the 70s and all your tracks were 20 minutes long or something, then maybe. But yeah, generally speaking, 10 or 12 is the kind of standard.
Yeah, I guess I've got jazz albums that are, I think Kind of Blue is only fucking
That's only 4 or 5, I think, maybe. I know there's one side of the vinyl which is only 2 songs.
Yeah. Yes, there's So What and Flamenco Sketches on one side, isn't there?
Yeah.
Blue and Green, Freddie Freeloader, and yeah, you might be right. Might have only 5 tunes. All right, yeah, it's an album then. If Miles Davis can do it, fuck it. No, I don't know. Like, it's weird because on Spotify and all these things, it'll name it as an album, and it's just like it's not really supposed to be an album. I don't know what the fuck it is. Do you know what I mean? It's just supposed to be. I don't know.
It's a project. It's something made from the heart, and I mean, what I really like is the way that you've gone about. You've tried to fight the whole kind of instant gratification thing by leaving people hanging. Like the arrangements of the tunes, they're not written with the club in mind, or DJs in mind in that.
No, but people have been playing them, which is mad. Like, because when I sent it out, I sent it to people. I was like, it's probably not one to play out this, but here it is anyway. Thinking people might like it for radio and stuff, but then I've been getting sent videos of people playing out. That's like
brilliant. Well, when you wrote these, because let's go about that concept, because this came about through it was LSB who inspired this, wasn't it? With the whole kind of
Well, sort of. I mean, I sort of knew I was going to do it anyway.
right.
Like I knew I was going to do it as a load of tunes linked together from when I had the tunes from a while back. And it's always something like, I think if I was going to do an album, it'd do the same thing. Do you know what I mean? If it's a body of work, I think why not make it do that, make it interesting. But yeah, the conversation about it being a series was definitely Luke's doing. I mean, a few people really, but it was Luke who said about the series. Like we were talking in a WhatsApp group, and I was whinging about people's attention span being short, and and I was saying, people don't listen to anything, don't pay attention to anything longer than 15 seconds or a minute. And Luke was saying, like, how would you explain a series then? How would you explain a Netflix series and people binging on them? I was like, it's a fucking good point, that.
It's an amazing point because that gives me hope that long form content, and I'm unashamedly long form. All these interviews that I'm sticking up on YouTube, they're all about an hour long, and I don't care. I'm not going to cut them up. If you're really interested, you're going to sit down and watch it. If you're not, you're not, and that's that. Mm-hmm. And I love long form content, but it gives me hope that, yeah, as humans, we sit down and we'll watch hours and hours of television, going way beyond bedtime, making ourselves unhealthy for the next day. But so if we can do that with telly, there's still hope for music, that people will still, the new generation, that our attention spans aren't dwindling as much as certain reports would suggest and things like that. It gives me with hope, really. I think it must be a marketing thing. Like Netflix have nailed that whole, nobody binge watched before, really, did they?
Was there the opportunity to, though? Do you know what I mean? Unless you bought a box set.
Yeah, you know I mean? No, and like, you binge watch box sets, actually.
Yeah, but you wouldn't really have the opportunity to just pick one, and you'd have to go and buy it, or you'd have to rent it, and most people didn't do that, did they? Do you know what I mean? Like the way it was delivered to you on telly was week on week, wasn't it?
Yeah. Are you a binge watcher?
Yeah.
What was the last thing you binge watched?
What was the last thing I binge watched? I think I've seen everything. The last thing I really enjoyed was Gomorrah. I watched that again. Well, I didn't realize there was a fourth and fifth series. I'd only watched up until the third series, or I might have seen the fourth. Have you seen that? The Italian?
No.
It's like the Neapolitan mafia, but in the modern day. It's fucking mint. And I watched up to, I think I'd watched up to series 3 or 4, and then someone said to me, "Oh, they started talking about something that happened." I was like, "Wait, I have not seen that." And then I put it on and I realised there's a fucking whole other series. So I went back to the beginning and watched the whole series all the way through. It's so good.
All right, so you went back to the start in order to prepare yourself for the
new I'm going to forget what's happened. Because that's the thing, like, when a series comes out like a year later,
yeah,
my memory's shite, man. I never remember what's happened in the series, but I have to go back and watch the old series.
I've kind of done the same thing, having finished watching Better Call Saul. I've done the same thing with Breaking Bad, because I watched that. I binge watched the hell out of that. Could I remember any of it? I couldn't remember so much of it, which is kind of the beauty of, that's a silver lining of binge watching, that it can't go into your brain. But what I've taken to doing, if I'm watching more than 2 or 3 episodes, I'll stop it. I'll pop out and make a cup of tea or go and have a smoke or something like that, and literally interrogate myself on what I've just seen.
Right.
Because otherwise, it's just like, right, okay, what happened in that episode? If it's not going in and I'm standing there like, then it's like, right, you need to turn this off because you're not enjoying it. You're not. Somebody spent millions now making this, and there's a whole team of people have produced this, and you're letting it wash over you in a way. Yeah. Really, it's that kind of passive consumption, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. And it's easy to do that with Breaking Bad, because it's like it's got bits in it where it's like, this doesn't seem like it matters, and then you get to the end, it's like, oh shit, that really mattered. Do you know what I mean? And I like that. You can sort of apply that to music, where you're going like, right, this bit, it might not have any drums in it, and it might not have, it might just be a fucking string and something else on its own, but this is setting the tone for what comes later. Do you know what I mean? Because if it's just all full on for the whole fucking hour, you're not going to stay engaged with it. Do you know what I mean? You need the fucking dynamics in it. So,
massively. You've just triggered the whole ripple of goosebumps going down me thinking about the strings on the Winter Songbook, because I think that's the perfect example, and I wish I knew the name of the last tune. But everything comes together. All these little elements that you've been introducing in the strings comes together on that last tune. I think
it gets really pretentious at the end, doesn't it? That's the
Yeah,
most pretentious bit of the whole thing. Yeah, Snow Prince last tune's called.
that's it.
Yeah, fucking. I just thought like, how am I going to end it? Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's got to get bigger in some way, but I don't make stadium drum and bass. I never have. Do you know what I mean? So like, it's got to get big. It's like fucking strings. So it's a good way out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you had this kind of episodical delivery system in mind and you started going back over these tracks then that you've been writing and saving for the Winter Songbook,
Hmm.
did you have to then deconstruct them completely? Because I can't imagine that you'd written them in that type of way, but to leave people on these cliffhangers and stuff, you must have had to completely deconstruct them.
There was 2 tunes, China Mermaid into the Cinder Path, which is the thing that come. The next 2 tunes that come out of the Cinder Path and Snow Prince, that's tonight.
Mm.
China Mermaid into the Cinder Path, I had a sort of join for that because 2 of the sounds are actually the same sound, they're just processed differently. So I had this sort of morph of the 2 of them. And actually, when I sat down to do it, the morph wasn't even that good, and I ended up fucking layering it with a load of other stuff to make it a bit better. But that was the one where I thought, yeah, those 2 are definitely going to link together. So that sort of made me go, well, I can do it with the rest of them then. But yeah, I don't know whether I necessarily sat down when I was writing them going, yeah, let's definitely, let's definitely have these things linked. But they weren't like, when I say they were tunes, they weren't, most of them didn't have any drums in. There was only Whispers that had any drums in.
Right.
That's
So
it.
real
Whispers
early
in,
sketches.
yeah, sorry, no, I'm talking shit. Whispers, Cinderpath and China Mermaid had drums in. The others had no drums in. They were just little musical ideas. So at that point, it was just like, that's a little phrase. I mean, they're all in the same key. So from there, it's just like, right, well, as long as you can make them feel like they move in the right way, musically, it's going to be easy to put them together. Do you know what I mean? Because I can only really I can play the guitar, but I can only really play one key on the keyboard. I can only really play an F minor on the keyboard. So it's like, right, well, if I'm going to play any of these, because a lot of it's just played live, do you know what I mean? I've just played it in.
Mm.
It's like, right, if I'm going to play it, then I only really know how to play an F minor. So that's why they always just, it's just the automatic thing when I sit down with a sound and I'm playing it on the keyboard, I'll just end up playing it in F minor. So, yeah, they all just happen to be in F minor like that.
Right. So in that way, you could kind of move things around and see what worked and kind of you had these building blocks, but you didn't know quite exactly what the
How
building
they
would
go
look like.
together. Yeah. And then, yeah, I did sort of deconstruct because some of the old ones were made in Logic. And I moved from Logic to Ableton and Pro Tools about around the time I was working with Paul Heaton, because all that project was in Pro Tools. So just like, it was a fucker really, because the first time I spoke to John, the producer, he said, Paul rang me, he said, John needs to speak to you before we start the project. So I was like, right, fine. I thought, anything John asked me, I can answer the question. I'm quite confident in the stuff that I know. The first thing he said to me was, "Can you use Pro Tools?" I was like, "Fuck, no, I can't. I'm gonna have to learn to use Pro Tools." So I learned it in that time, and then I was like, actually, I prefer working in this for mixing and arranging and stuff. But I thought I need something that's still creative.
Yeah.
And so I moved on to Ableton, and I've never looked back. It was fucking, I absolutely love it. It's so creative. And
Go on, it's intuitive for that type of flow.
yeah, because most sequences work on like you've got your tracks down the side and you've got your time across the top like that.
Mm.
Whereas Ableton has this thing called session view, and you just have everything's loops, so it's just rows of loops.
That's right.
And I find working like that really creative, because I can go like, right, let me work out one section here, and it's like that needs a little variation. I'll just move on to a different track and a different can't remember what they call it. It might be called a scene. Can't remember. But move it on to the next one, and then I can fuck with that, and like, right, there's my little variation on that. And then I can there's a way where you can plug Ableton into Pro Tools, so Pro Tools sees Ableton like a band. And then you can literally jam out your tune on Ableton. So I'll have a rough idea of what my arrangement's going to be, and I'll press record on Pro Tools, and I'll just record from Ableton and literally play the tune in live.
Oh wow!
So then once I had all the parts in there, so I had all these old parts from Logic, I had some of the parts from Ableton, and then I just literally just had them as blocks in Pro Tools. Then I made it quite easy together.
That's cool. So you've got much more freedom. You are playing like a real musician in that type of way then.
Yeah, this was certainly more like where, because drum and bass is like, I love drum and bass because it's pretty much science. It's somewhere where the fucking apex of art and science meets drum and bass. Do you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah, I
all the
love
best
that.
drum and bass is like it's art, but it's fucking technical. Do you know what I mean? So, and the best people do both things well. Do you know what I mean? So that's a great thing, but it also means that sometimes drum and bass can sound a bit formulaic. Do you know what I mean? Because you have to be so technical with it, and it's all, things are on the grid, and everything's so tight. You've got so little space to play with. Everything has to be so tight and tightly managed. And it was just nice to do something like this where I sort of gave myself a little bit more freedom musically. Where it's like if that thing slips out of time a little bit, I'm just gonna fucking leave it. Do you know what I mean? Or if that's a little bit loose, or do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
not not thinking of it as like maths.
Yeah, it's that human touch then. It gives it, that's, a lot of people say like kind of mistakes are the soul of something in that way. And they're not mistakes, it's just part of your own individual playing in that way.
Yeah, create what is it? Creativity is letting yourself make mistakes. Art's knowing which ones to keep.
Yeah, go on. Yeah, that's brilliant.
Mm.
And there
Yeah,
was a point, I remember one interview that we did where you were really trying to move away from anything screen based, anything that was like on a DAW and stuff. And you bought, I can't remember what the machine was, and I should have looked this up ahead of this call, but you picked up the guitar again and stuff like that. And was that all part
I had an
of this
MPC for
creative
a bit.
journey? That's it. That's it.
Yeah. Sorry, go on. What are you saying?
Was that like, I did, this was going back 3 4 years, good couple of years before lockdowns and stuff like that,
Yeah.
where you were doing that? I mean, was this all kind of part of the creative process that you've reached this kind of peak at now? Really, was that the start of the journey?
Well, you know what? I got that. Yeah, it was, but not in the way that I thought it was going to be. See, one of the mistakes I've made through being a bit of a studio nerd and being obsessed with gear and stuff is in the past I've sort of had times where I've been like, when I get this piece of gear, then it's on. Do you know what I mean? I need this piece of gear before I can make this tune, and that's bollocks. That you don't at all. Do you know what I mean? Like I've got all this gear here, we can do it all on a laptop, and most of the time I'm working on a laptop. Do you know what I mean? Some tunes I make on the iPad. In
Yes,
fact,
that's right. You were doing shit on the iPads. That was it. I
yeah,
remember now.
there's an app called Core Gadget. It's fucking mint. And what had happened? What I got that MPC with the idea of like, yeah, this is gonna, I'm gonna make slightly, make the music a bit rawer and you know, it's like a cool organic way to make music. But it's just dead fucking restricting, man. It's cool for some people, but for me, I found it dead restricting. And actually, when I got back on the laptop onto Logic and like the Native Instruments stuff, which I've been using Native Instruments for 15 years, and it's still everything I do is either battery contact or um battery contacts or machine. And I got back on there, and Whispers was actually the first tune I made, and I was like, "Fucking hell!" I forgot how much power I've got when I'm on this thing. Do you know what I mean? And it was like, right, and that
Oh,
made me
cool.
really want to. And yeah, that's where all this sort of music came from. Where, um, it was me sort of getting a new lease of life, going back to the laptop, and then I ended up making it
So
so
that
because
is the opposite of what you were expecting to get out of that whole process, though, at the
it was,
time.
yeah.
When you were using that Korg and your iPad and stuff like that, that wasn't the outcome that you were expecting at all,
No,
was
it's
it?
not. No, I mean, there's certainly obviously on this project in particular, like when I'm playing the guitar and I'm playing the keyboard and all that kind of stuff, then yeah, you're not looking at the screen because you're looking at the instrument. Do you know what I mean? I still use tape a lot, so there's obviously all that, and I use all the outboard and stuff like that. But yeah, most of the time looking at the screen. It's one of them things. It's like there's this big argument in music production of what's better, analog or digital, and it's like no one seems to ask you the question like for what. Do you know what I mean? Like
Mm.
there's stuff. I have this gear because I don't think I'm yet to hear stuff in the computer personally that sounds like that does. That's my interpretation of it. But there's stuff in the computer that you could never do with this. It's physically impossible to do it. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's just like it's using the tools for what they're actually good at. Do you know what I mean? Like the whole debate is fucking mad. It's like fucking You know, it's like comparing dogs to cats. Do you know what I mean?
It's quite indicative of where we're at as humankind, I think, though, really, and especially in the UK and the media and the Tories and stuff like that. Like everything is divisive. You're either
let's
with
just
us
have
or
a
against
fucking
us. It's
argument
yes
about
or
it.
no.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, and this is another thing with this whole project. I'm just pretty fucking anti social media. I fucking hate it, man, because it's just like, you know, you're right. It's dividing people like fuck. Like everyone, you on fucking Twitter and people just arguing about anything.
Oh
The
yeah, man.
most mundane bollocks, and some fuckers arguing about it. It's just like, and you know, there's people capitalizing on this. They're making a lot of fucking money off people just having a go at each other, and it's not an accident. It's by design. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the algorithms are there. They reward bad behavior. They reward angry posts. A few
Yeah.
artists within drum and bass have tried it and put like, you know, done that kind of clickbaity thing. Like, I'm absolutely fuming. And the minute you see that, even as a human, even when I'm trying not to be a sucker for those type of tactics,
Read
you
it.
always get drawn in. You get drawn in instantly. Like, and it plays, it is ruthlessly playing with our emotions,
It is.
really, isn't it?
Well, you know what? The music industry has got a lot to answer for with it. Because, right, this is fucking long now. You've opened the right can of worms. If
Oh,
you go
good.
back, if you go right back to the 90s, the internet's in its infancy. And all you've really got is forums and email. Now, as you get towards the end of the 90s, you start getting other bits of media are popping up on the internet. So things like photos and stuff like that. And you'll find that there's people going on these forums and they're posting pictures that they don't own. And then the copyright owners are going back to the forum owners and going, you've got my picture on your website and you don't have permission, so I'm going to sue you. So the Clinton administration in America brought in a piece of legislation called the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, the DMCA. Now, what the DMCA is when it covers a load of stuff. But if, say, for instance, you had a website, which is a forum, and someone else uploads my picture to it, I can't come and sue you for it. You have a thing called safe harbor. That's what the DMCA gives you. All I've got to do is tell you the stuff's on there and I want it removed, and then it's your responsibility to remove it. But then if another person comes up and uploads the same thing again, I've got to tell you again. You see what I mean? So it's like whack-a-mole. It's like every time someone uploads something, the copyright holder has to tell that person, right, tell the site, take it down, and then someone else can upload it. Now, some bright spark at fucking Google realized this, and they started going, well, we can actually get away with this. And the lads who originally built YouTube before Google built it, that's the premise that they built it on, was that we can hide behind safe harbor and we can upload anything we want to the site. We can have people upload anything we want to the site and we can make a shitload of money off it. And they got caught for it. They had a big court. I mean, they eventually sold it to Google. I think Google ended up fighting the case. And it was Google against Viacom, because Viacom had said, you've uploaded our content. And they're saying, no, it's a third party. And Viacom said, no, you paid this third party to upload the content, sort of thing. And I think they got done for it in the end. But it was the start of websites going, well, we can take people's I hate the word content, but content.
Yeah, I hate the word content. For when we're talking about music, I hate the word
It's
content.
disgusting, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? That's all shit is nowadays. It's just content.
Yeah. Like we're making content now. This video, that's content. That's fine.
Well, exactly. And this
you read on the shitter, that's content.
That's content.
Music, that's art.
That's art. Yeah, but still, it's still all to these people, to these big tech companies. I say this to people all the time. You list Facebook, Google, Instagram, Twitter, and I say to people, what are they? And the answer is they're advertising companies. Do you know what I mean? It's dressed up as social media, but they're just fucking advertising companies. It's just stuff people want to see that will bring people to a site and fucking adverts next to it. And that's how they make the money. And they made fucking billions out of doing it. And it goes back to this shit I'm talking about. So after a few years, you found on YouTube and across Google's, across all Google's different sites that they had, the thing was content, music, books, films, fucking anything that people wanted to see, Google would find a way to give it away for free and fucking put advertising next to it. Facebook followed suit, as did Twitter, as did Instagram and all these other places. So, yeah, so, you know, I was quite lucky in that I was able to make a career out of the fact that if I put music up, these social media companies would make sure that somebody would make sure that people saw it. Do you know what I mean? Now, all right, they were giving it away for free, but I would then get booked off it, and I toured the world doing it. Do you know what I mean? I've fucking done thousands of gigs off the back of that. You know, at the time, we were doing numbers that in our particular sphere of drum and bass, no one had ever done before, really.
Yeah.
So, you know, in some ways, it was good for me. But then roll on a few years later, and some bright spark at one of these places realised that there's better ways to bring people back to the advertising. And we noticed it early on where I'd get mates who'd message me and they'd go, have you seen the comments on your YouTube thing? And I'm like, I don't fucking read them. It's like, oh, there's some guy arguing about this and there's another guy arguing about that. And after a few months, I was like, that's fucking mint. Because by that point, this fucking word engagement had turned up. Do you know what I mean? Everyone was talking about engagement. How do you get engagement on your post? And the fact of the matter is, the one main thing that will always bring somebody back, the thing that niggles at your brain all day, is a fucking argument with someone. I should have said that. I'm going to say that to him. Fucking, I'm not saying that. Do you know what I mean? It will always bring you back to a page. And someone at these fucking companies has realised at some point, arguments. That's how we make real money. Do you know what I mean? That's how we get all the impressions. Do you know what I mean?
You relished and celebrated that, I think, and I've literally just remembered this. I'd forgotten all about it. You had a website dedicated to all of the comments that are being thrown at you in strats.
Oh, yeah,
I think it was the Physics and Strategy of Cunts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Very good. Yeah, it was a Tumblr, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, but more so, like, to be honest, that was just poking fun at people fucking, you know, having a go at us. But the real divisive stuff where people, you know, if you think nowadays, a real divisive stuff like race and sex and gender and all these things, those fires are being stoked at the moment.
Oh,
you know, I mean, there's people fighting political campaigns on them, and you know, these fuckers are making billions out of it and just happy to let people fucking tear each other apart. Do you know what I mean? Where's the love, man?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I blame Google. But and the reason I'm saying about the music industry is because the music industry could have seen this coming. Do you know what I mean? The music industry refused to adapt early on and go like, why don't we control like the film industry? Because I remember talking to my uncle about this. My uncle's involved in film, and he used to go around and sell on-demand TV, like in the 90s. And at one point, his company ran like the back end of Virgin Media's on-demand things.
Wow.
So very up on all that kind of stuff. And when about 2009, when I'd had a few years of like people going, we're going to put your music out, and then the music didn't come out because the labels couldn't afford to put it out because they were just like, we're just going to lose a load of money on it. I was getting really frustrated, and I was talking to him about it. I was like, fucking piracy, it's ruining everything. And he was like, look, you've just got to adapt. And I was like, well, fucking hell are you going on about? He said, listen, there's a thing that's coming soon to film, and it's called Netflix, and people will pay a certain amount a month, and everyone will get all the films free. You can stream as much as you want. And I thought, you're off your fucking head. That won't work. You know what I mean? And then, like, we're looking at it now, like how wrong I was. And, you know, like, had music, you know, had the company. I mean, you could argue that Spotify is this, you know, the major labels coming together and go like, how can we package a thing and give everybody all the music where you pay a monthly subscription for it? Because they took a huge
but that's done in the crudest way possible. And I think like the comparison of the film sector and the music sector is a really good one. It was Danny Styles made a post recently saying like, why can't independent musicians team together like film production companies? Because nobody on Netflix is getting paid pennies for a view. There's still money for production companies, and they will invest heavily in the creations that are being made. Whereas this isn't happening with music at all, is it?
Yeah, original content. And I think it's difficult, though, because I think there's less films than there are music. So it's easier for Netflix to sort of aggregate it and go like, right, here's a load of money to go and make a film. Because let's say Netflix, obviously these numbers are just plucked out the sky. If there's 1,000 films on Netflix, there's 1,000,000 tunes on fucking Spotify, isn't there? So so if you're making original content, where do you put the money? Who do you give the money to? Do you know what I mean? It's a difficult one, Spotify. Like, I'm torn on the whole thing because, you're looking at these fucking executives with all this mad fucking money and all these plush offices and all that they've got. So there's money in it when they say they're not making any money. And that, when you think, well, the rate could definitely go up, but then you also look at it and go, you look at the fucking state of the internet nowadays. It's nice to actually have somewhere that's only dedicated to music. Do you know what I mean? Because, like I say, these social media companies used to parade around like they really backed it, but they fucking didn't. Do you know what I mean? They don't give a fuck about music. Nothing's devalued music more than social media. And at least Spotify is going like, the thing here is music. Come here to listen to music. Do you know what I mean? So
wow. That's a very rare pro Spotify comment. As
I'm
about
not
as pro Spotify as
I'm not saying I'm pro Spotify. I'm very firmly sat on the fucking fence with it because I just don't really know one way or the other yet. I think we've got to see what happens. But I know there's certainly people who are making money now, that wouldn't have made that money 10 years ago. Do you know what I mean? When I came through you, it was literally like, you will not make money out of your releases. There's no money to be made in releases. You just make it on your live work. Do you know what I mean? And that really ate away at me being able to be in the studio and make music. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's really true. Actually, I spoke to like a US artist in America who's in a wheelchair, so because of access issues, he'd love to play more gigs, but can't. But he makes enough off streaming because he makes a particular strand of quite commercial drum and bass successfully and very well that he's able to do that and live a creative life. He wants to play more gigs, but it does enable, there are those kind of positive lights. That's not just off Spotify, that's off all the streaming platforms.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. You've got to do a little bit of everything these days, haven't you? But that's that's a nice story. Do you know what I mean? That's nice that someone is actually able to fucking, at least make a living out of it. Where 10 years ago he wouldn't have been able to.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
You just had to gig, really. I mean, with it, that must coincide then with the points where there was less music coming out from you, where you were maybe more of a curmudgeonly so and so.
Fucking piss can. He just went out all the time and drunk loads of fucking brandy. I mean, I was my own worst enemy for a long time. Do you know what I mean? It was like, you're doing 4 gigs a week, you're drinking a bottle of brandy at every gig, and fucking I'm one of them where I never know when to go home. So it was like, like your parties are lasting fucking 4 days, and there comes a point in your life where your hangovers start lasting longer than your fucking parties. And you find like just fucking over time and you're getting nothing done. And I was just like, right, I had to stop myself and just go, right, what do you want to be in life? Do you know what I mean? Do you want to be a fucking piss can, or do you want to do this music thing properly? Do you know what I mean?
Piss can. I love that phrase. So are you teetotal these days? I think
yeah,
you are.
6 years. 2016 or something. Yeah. Because I just found like to the outside world, me and Strats were killing it. We were playing all over the world. We were doing a Radio 1 show, selling out venues all over the gaff, fucking doing the nights and all that kind of stuff. And it, to everyone else, it's like, yeah, you're smashing it. And in my head, I'm thinking, I've not made a tune in 2 years. This isn't what I thought it was going to be. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like we're doing all this stuff just to maintain doing more of this stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's like, not really what I didn't want to be a promoter. I didn't want to be a fucking radio DJ. It's not, I know people, ultimately my job is for people to, to help people enjoy themselves. So if people enjoy themselves, then all right, I'm doing my job properly. But at the same time, I think people aren't stupid. They know if you're not enjoying it. Do you know what I mean? And the older I get, the more I sort of realize that I just have to make music for myself. I have to do this for myself, do the things that will make me happy. And then the thing will be real, and you just have to sort of try and be safe in the knowledge that there's someone else somewhere in the world who's got the same taste as you have, and they'll like what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? And back then, I think I lost that a little bit. Do you know what I mean? And it was mad because,
you have to, because you got bills to pay and life to have, and you end up on this. And I've done it myself with certain aspects of content creation. And at the moment, with One More Thing, I'm doing what you're saying there, literally just putting what I want to see into the world and just doing it with not thinking about money or anything like that. And you need to you need to have that reality check. But quite often life will get in the way, bills will get in the way, commitments and stuff.
Of course.
And it takes you
Yeah.
quite a while to realize, hang on a minute, I never wanted to be on this treadmill. Like I wanted to be over there doing that. But the treadmill was only part of a small part of the journey. And then suddenly that becomes the journey in a way.
That's it. Yeah. It's sort of like, it's not like I only wanted to DJ so that I could make tunes, but just because of the way the industry was set up, it's like, well, you're going to have to go out and do, a fair amount of DJing, like you say, to pay the bills, to make sure that you can still be in the studio. And then it's like, hang on, this has took over where I don't have any time to be in the fucking studio now. And, part of that was like, I'm not just blaming the fucking the industry and the job and stuff. That was on me. Do you know what I mean? And that was why I came to a point where it's like, fucking stop blaming other shit and take some responsibility for yourself. Do you know what I mean? Just knock the fucking drinking on the head and you'll be fine. Because it's one of them, like, I've never gone out at the beginning of a night and gone, let's take some drugs. But I've definitely gone out at the beginning of the night and said, let's have a drink, and then took loads of drugs. Do you know what I mean? And I used to do it all the fucking time. And it's the same with smoking. I'd never smoke in the week, and I'd smoke 60 fucking cigs at a weekend.
Yeah.
And I was just like, at the time, I was like, well, if I stop drinking, I'll stop all of this. And I did, do you know what I mean? It was like, and then I only planned to stop for a year. I had a bet with my dad. And he was like, there's no way you're going to stop drinking. I said, I bet you £1,000 I stop drinking. And he goes, right, I'll have you the grand bet. And then fucking on this was Christmas Day, I think. And then I was stopping on New Year's Day. I was stopping on New Year. But because I knew I was stopping, I went wild for like 2 months up to like the day when I stopped. And then I was in my mate's gaff, and it was like the 4th of January, and I've still not been to bed because I thought once I got to bed, then that's it, it's over. But at the moment, it's still New Year. But at about 3 o'clock in the morning on New Year's Day, my dad texted me, I was the no drinking going. And I thought, you fucker. You know what I mean? So I said, shit, I'll give you £1,000. And anyway, you fucking
So you voided the bet. You'd voided
no,
the bet.
He didn't. I was at the end of the year, and he gave me the grand. So, and then once I'd done that, I was just like, I've done a year now. It's like, and I've got quite a lot done in this year. Am I that arse? It's like I don't really miss it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for sobriety, and sometimes my funniest moments, because you generally do stuff. I always did stuff and do stuff. I got to be honest. I'm not teetotal in any way, but I do it for a laugh with my mates. You do it to ease the anxiety and stop you being so stressed. So, which essentially means that you're having a better time and laughing and stuff like that. But I found some of my best laughs are when all my boys are still totally trolleyed, but I'm driving because I'm working, I got a gig or something like that. And there's some of my funniest moments where you're surrounded by people still doing it. It's not a barrier. Like, you know what? It can be one of the funniest things. Like being sober is one of the trippiest things you can do sometimes.
Yeah, when you're people watching. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? Like the thing is, because I've had the same thing. I've gone out and I've been anxious because I feel a bit weird. Do you know what I mean? You're not weird. Everyone else is weird. Do you know what I mean? We're all fucking weird. And it's like if 9 out of the 10 people in the room have got enough booze inside them to stop being fucking weird, the vibe's not weird and you're relaxed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like, that's part of it. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I had a fucking buzz when I used to get off my head. I've been all around the world. Me and Strats have been all around the world. We've partied like fuck, and it was mint, and I don't regret any of it at all.
Brilliant.
Absolute fucking buzz. I was really fucking good at it. Do you know what I mean? And I'm just like, I've done it now. I've completed it. Do you know what I mean? And that was one of the things where, a couple of mates said to me, I can't believe you stopped drinking of all people. And it was quite easy for me because when you get people, when you've stopped, it's like, oh, you're fucking soft. Why have you stopped drinking? It's like, no one can say that to me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it made it easier. Like, fucking shut up. And then I can just crack on. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't miss it, man. It was a good time, but I'm much happier now because the music's my tonic now.
Yeah, totally. And the studio is as well. And I mean, you've got things there behind you which you've been building for years, right? This is like you are living the dream. And I've got, I think we were saying this before I press record. I can't quite remember now.
Yeah, we were.
But yeah, you are literally living the childhood dream. Some of the things that you've got behind you there, you've been building for years. And this is exactly, the studio is your vice, really, in that type of way, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, and it always has been. Like, apart from, I mean, like I said to you before we started recording, every bit of money I've ever spent I've ever earned from music, I've spent on my house. And I should probably say I've spent a lot on brandy as well. But on my house, like a brandy for a few years and fucking music equipment. I've been building my studio since I was 12 years old. I got my first 4-track when I was 12. And I've been building, building up from there, buying and selling gear over the years. And got to a point now where I've literally built the entire room from scratch.
Amazing. By like you're literally for tracking down old components and things like that, like on a real kind of quest.
Yeah, most of this is stuff that I've built, found what, got the old schematics, worked out what's inside and, done the research to find out what the stuff is, where to find it, bought it, built all the furniture, built all of it, man.
In another world, could you have become a carpenter, or is this stuff where you've really
Yeah,
had
do
to
you know what?
push
I've always
yourself?
said that. Yeah, I'd quite happily be a joiner, but I fucking I built this. These racks are built. They were the other way around before. I built them in lockdown, and then a couple of weeks back, I decided I wanted to build them into a long rack like this. And I built this top piece, and I built a bottom piece for it, and I put casters on the bottom of it, and I spent about 2 weeks putting it all together, sanding it down, fucking oiling it, and all that. And put the last piece of gear in it last week, and I just did ping. I was like, "Fuck, what was that?" And there's a fucking screw on the floor. And what I've
Oh
done is
no.
where I've built the fucking it's quite complicated to explain, but basically there's all the weight of the whole rack on one fucking joint between two fucking planks of wood with a bit of metal on it. So fucking the only way to fix it is to fucking take all the gear out, turn it upside down, and put another set of casters in the middle. I just can't be fucking arsed. So it's like it looks dead good, but there's actually bits of wood just stuffed underneath it to stop it from all falling apart. So probably better that I wasn't a joiner. But, no, I enjoy it. It's good. Like, it's still creative in it, and that was the thing when I went quiet for a few years. It's because I was building this place. Because Manchester's mad. Like, I love this city, and with previously people have always made. We've got a lot of old industrial buildings, a lot of old mills, and a lot of old factories and things like that. And that's previously where all the music was made in the city. There used to be a building called New Mount Street, and that was where all the studios were, and it's sort of where I cut my teeth. So I learned to make drum and bass with that. I could make tunes, but make actual drum and bass, I got taught by Future Cut because they had their studio in there. Chase and Status were in there for a bit.
Yeah.
The guy who made all the tunes for Blue. Do you remember Blue, the pop band?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Fucking, and there was all kinds of other things in there. There was labels in there. There was a studio designer in there. It was just a wicked little hub. Eventually got turned into offices, and then I think it might be flats now. I'm not even sure.
Probably.
And there was all these buildings that were great old buildings, and they're just getting turned into fucking flats. And you can't find studios, certainly affordable studio space. You just can't find it anywhere. And it's mad because all these flats are getting sold on the premise of, oh, Manchester, this fucking great cultural city and the music and all this kind of shit. And it's like, but all the places where the art is getting made, you're just fucking off. You know what I mean? I mean, it was obvious when it happened 20 odd years ago when they knocked down the Hacienda and built flats on them and called it the fucking Hacienda. Do you know what I mean? Like, that was a sign of things to come, that. And it's mad because finding a studio in Manchester is just a fucking pain in the ass. So I stopped drinking, and then in 2017 I was like, right, let's get on it. I think I spoke to you around that time, and then my neighbour started complaining about the noise. I was just like, fucking hell, well, I'm gonna make tunes now if they complain all the time. And that's when I started looking for a studio, and it took me a year and a half to find this place because I share this unit with Zed Bias. He's got the studio next door. We've got like one unit, and we've built it. He'd actually started building this room, and I came in and finished it. And it took me 2 years with the help of a couple of mates. Chunky helped me, and our mate Vintage Nick helped. I mean, Nick did most of it, to be honest. Nick's a builder, so he was just like, right, you two do this, and then me and Chunks are just fucking find our way around it. But it was like partway through, Nick's going to it. He's like, you just need to fucking build it and stop arsing about, stop adding things to the thing. And I was like, no, it'll be mint if we do this and we do that and we do that. And I'm adding all these different bits and bobs. And it's only in hindsight, I'm looking back now and going, because I wasn't making any music at the time, I'm trying to find a way to be creative. and I'm doing it with fucking bits of wood and bricks and fucking all kinds of other shit. When really I should just put the room together, got me speakers in it, got me computer in it, and made some fucking music. Do you know what I mean? So that's sort of why I was quiet for a few years, because I got lost in doing this.
No, I think you found yourself doing it more like really. I think, you know, and you definitely feel more inspired. And it's really interesting because I chatted to like Strategy fairly recently. And this is why I was at the start of the year, but he was out of lockdown and he was really inspired as well and said he'd been the most inspired that he'd ever been as well. So clearly that time away from all of that, those years of touring and everything else had a really positive effect anyway, just full stop, whether you were making a studio or with him, you know, he was just refining his art and by like DJing and stuff like that. So many people came out of it feeling really inspired and just ready to go. Like,
yeah, we definitely did. I mean, certainly me and Strats were you know, obviously we'd done all the touring together and we'd done all the partying together. So, you know, like we were both in a similar kind of mindset. It was like, we need to get back in the studio, we need to do some music, and we need to, you know, remind people what it is we actually do. And yeah, while I was doing this, he then went and did a load of fucking music. And then that for me was inspiring in itself, because I'm looking at the guy I work with most closely has just had a really good fucking productive year in lockdown, when he came out of lockdown, and he had all this music. And he came to the studio because I'd not seen him really in lockdown. And then we got together afterwards, and he came in here and he played me all the new music, because there's loads of stuff you've not heard as well. I'm mixing an album that him and Footsie have done.
wow, yeah. He said about that. There's like the True
so
Thought stuff. There's so much stuff
Yeah,
that he's done.
loads of stuff. And I remember saying to him at the time, I was like, I need a year like you've just had. And that's basically what I've done in the last year. This was probably 18 months ago. You know, where you've just made a shitload of music and just fucking let people know what day it is, you know what I mean?
Yeah, go on. And it has been a shitload. You know, we had the mixtape at the start of the year, and then that's kind of built on. There was only really a short gap between the mixtape and this Winter Songbook, really, like only a couple of months.
Yeah. And then, you know, I'm going to try and do volume 2 next year, I think.
You're
I'll
probably
do 3
well
volumes,
into
I
that.
think.
You've probably already got most of that already
I've got a
made.
few, yeah. But then there's also like there's sort of a few other bits and bobs to do. I'm doing an EP for Heads. I've been talking to Brian about doing something on V. I've got stuff with Eva. I've got some stuff on Space Cadet. And it's like some of these tunes might end up going to some of them projects. Like we're still just in the talking stage at the moment with a lot of them. So
Loads
yeah.
of awesome stuff, but an album, like a real album, a debut artist album from Phizix has got to be. This is, you know, we're on the journey to that, aren't we?
Eventually, yeah. Yeah. Might be a few years off yet though. What I really want to do is 100 tunes in 3 years.
Okay.
Well, release 100 tunes in 3 years, which sounds
100
mental.
tunes. What, and release them as well. So 100
And release
releases.
it, yeah. Because I can make 200. And let's say half of them are release worthy. I mean, to be honest, 3/4 of them are usually release worthy, and then if you just pick the best ones, you're going to come out of half of them probably. I'll probably make more than 200 really. If I make a tune a day, which is pretty much what I do, and then some of them you spend a little bit longer on, obviously. But you know, that's only releasing 33 tunes a year, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's releasing, that's like in terms of a release schedule, that would be a tune out every week and a half, wouldn't it? If it's 52 weeks in a year.
Yeah, but then obviously you're going to do things where you'd probably go like, right, there's an EP, I'm going to release a streaming single off it, and then I'll put 2 out later, or you know, the other bits and bobs. Like with this, like with the, you know, like with the mixtape, I think I did 12. I did 4 EPs, which were 12 tunes. Then I did 8 tunes when the actual mixtape come out. So I could do like, you know, I'm looking at like this year. I didn't really start releasing until March or April, just because we were held back by the vinyl. And I think I'd put 31 tunes out this year. So it's doable. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I've fucking made a rod for my own back now, because if I don't do it, I've said I'm going to do it in public now. I've already said this. But yeah, it's just like, you know, after not doing tunes for, you know, putting out music for so long, and just having loads of fucking sketches knocking about, it's just like I sort of feel like I owe it to people a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. And we've come full circle now to where we really started the interview, which is perfect. But I think that's great, you know, because the one thing that you always said publicly, and that we've already said in this interview, is that you won't put out anything unless you really believe in it and you feel it's got a place. So you've created this rod for your back is an amazing rod because people know who following you, who know about you and follow you, will know that it's worth checking. That it's
Yeah, I'm not.
gonna
Yeah,
be...
when I say I'm putting out 100 tunes, it's not going to be on. Well, I mean, it's 60 odd now, isn't it? Because I've already put 30 odd of them out. But I'm not going to put out fucking 100 half-assed tunes. You know what I mean? They're still going to be my best work.
Nothing you've ever done has been half-assed. You know, like talking about the studio or everything. Like if you're going to do it, you're going to do it properly. Simple as that.
Yeah, which is not always fucking the best thing when you fucking need to get through stuff. Like I should have done this studio half what I did to it. Do you know what I mean? Like in terms of the fucking decor and all that, just fucking was unnecessary. Really, found myself at the end of fucking 2019 holding a ladder for my mate trying to fit a fucking soil pipe to the outside of this fucking building. I'm thinking, what the fuck am I doing here? Because this isn't making tunes. Fixing bogs and fucking learning how plumbing works and all that, because it's just because the unit is literally the unit. We have to do all that in here. Do you know what I mean?
Wow. Okay. So there's plumbing involved as
Yeah, I
well.
built a kitchen and a fucking bog and all kinds of stuff. And fucking, honestly, it's mental. It was well over the top. The door is about that thick. That took us a week to build. The fucking speaker stands are made out of girders. They're the heaviest thing I've ever fucking lifted in my life. And I had to get my mate Nanny to come and help me fucking. And he was like, he reckons they were 100 key each. Yeah, just a lot, man. Just went
But
right.
you love it though. You wouldn't have it any other way. It's quite clear.
Yeah, I know. I try and pretend it's a pain in the ass, but I do fucking love it. I'm a proper.
Cool, man. So what comes up next? This is the worst question because obviously Winter Songbook, it's literally that hasn't dropped entirely yet. It will have done by the time this video goes out within a couple of days. But then how are you gonna ease yourself into 2023?
I've got a tune with Eva on her album called "It's in the Water," which produced by me and Thomas. And then what else is there? Yeah, there's them couple of EPs I was talking about. I've got a load of stuff that I'm going to probably work on over Christmas, which are like little vocal things. I've got a thing with Salo, and I've done started something with Dogger and Liam Bailey. So I'm probably going to work on them over Christmas. I've got a few other people. I'm going to try, if I've got time over the next week, I'm going to try and get in with a few other vocalists. Just at the moment, these things are only sketches, really. So, you know, get the sketches into more, you know, more of a song, and then see where we are, I guess. But yeah, probably. I don't ever put anything out in January. I think Eva's thing might be in January, and then I think I might put something out myself out in February, maybe just a single or something. There's a load of stuff just sat there where it's just like, right, if I spend 3 hours on this, there's a tune, do you know what I mean? So just got to get.
Well, I'm not going to hold you back from any of them now. I think we've covered everything that the world needs to know about Phizix right now and the Winter Songbook. So thank you very much for joining me, man.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me. Good chatting to you.
No, it's been a really cool conversation, and thanks to everybody who's watched this video, especially if you watched it all the way to the end. Then I fucking love you. If you like this video or anything that One More Thing does, please like it, subscribe it, tell your nan about it, do all of those things, and maybe even try and subscribe on Patreon if you can afford it. Whatever you can do, please stay watching because there's loads more sick interviews coming up. Thank you very much, George. Been wicked chatting to you.
Nice one, man. You take care.
Nice one. There we go. Cool, man. Thank you very much.
One more thing. One more thing. One more thing.